Hello, everybody. Hello. I, first of all, have to apologize. I've been fighting a terrible cold for about 4 or 5 days. So, of course, whenever you have to speak, it's always when it gets worse. So I apologize for my scratchiness. Is it warm outside? Are we feeling a little brisk out? So first of all, thank you for coming out. Yesterday we had an event. It was rainy all day, and today we decided we're going to have winds and frigid temperatures. So the fact you're here is very, very impressive. And I want to say thank you so much for coming out and being supportive of this today. I'm Opar Rice. I'm the CEO of Tanager Place, but that is not why I'm here today. I'm here as a community member and a good friend of many people in this room. I stand before you today as a high school dropout. People who know me know a little bit of my backstory, but I didn't finish high school. My family came from a very impoverished situation in Chicago, and a lot of trauma, a lot of, on my ACEs score, if you know that, I'm about a 9. I'm one of those people who should not have made it, and I talk very openly about that. But one of the things that did save my life and put me on this path was education and understanding the importance of having good educational outcomes, especially for kids of color. So I am one of those people, when I think about what can be done, I always have hope. Always have hope. I am the living embodiment of hope. And today what we are here to do is to talk about that. Not to talk about all the problems, right? We're going to define that. We're going to look at some data. There are some things that we know as a community that we have to do better. But that's not what today is about. Today is about finding solutions, right, engaging each other in that process. It is not just on the school district to make things better. It is all of our responsibilities to make things better. And today is the first step sort of in that process. So we're going to spend some time today and we're going to do a little bit of work together collectively. This is not something that's supposed to be depressing to do. I want you to be excited about doing this. I want you to be excited about the possibility of what we can do collectively as a community. We all have a vested interest in seeing this get better. That is the reality. That is what we are actually here for. That is why we're here today. That is why we're given time. That is why you, who could be at home chilling next to a fireplace, having some hot chocolate, decided to come down here and give of your time to do it. So let's, we got a little bit late start. We'll let people park, but we're going to move forward a little bit. So I want to first of all introduce Nancy Humbles. As everybody's aware, Nancy is the president of the Cedar Rapids School Board. But that is also not why she's here today. We are not our titles. What I know about Nancy is that we have had very passionate conversations around how we can make the lives of all children in this community better. How can we help them with their mental health? How can we help them with their educational outcomes? How do we get people engaged? She is here as a community activist saying, we can't do this alone. So it's not about the title. It's about who we all are individually as people and what we can collectively do together. And Nancy said, you know what? I think we need to have a good community conversation about this and engage everybody in it. So this is the start of many. So it's my pleasure to introduce Nancy Humbles.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to thank you. First of all, thank you all for coming out because it is cold outside. And I appreciate you being here. We're here for a purpose, and one of the purposes is we as a community come together and become part of the solution of how we can support our students, our district, and we could mentor, and I think this is it. We need to be collaborating and say, what can we do? We are part of the solution, and that's what I'm hoping for by the end of the day. And this is not the only meeting that we're having. Our next one will be March the 24th, and we have scheduled out all the way until October. So it's not like we're here today and we solve all the problems, no, or the issues. We will work together as a community to come up with our solutions. So thank you all. Can everyone see the slide? Well, I'll tell you about the slides. Okay? And then you'll have access to it later, and you can go on the website to look. And what we have done is a 5-year comparison of all grades within the Cedar Rapids Community School District. And we're looking, I don't know if I can reach that high. We're looking at 2012, 13, and then 2017. So we're looking at the reading, the math, and the science. And we're looking at the proficiency of our students. When we look, and I won't dwell on this because we are going to come up with a solution, is we have groups that are below 50% when it comes to the proficiency of our students. If we look, we have them in categories by ethnicity, and I'm not going to walk through each one of them, but we've done a comparison in reading, we're looking at math, and then also science. And what we have observed is African American is the only group that is among that in the lowest 3 performers and below the 50% proficiency in all 3 disciplines for both the years we're comparing. So we know we have work we need to get done. And this is why we are here today, to become part of the solution to this achievement gap. And it takes all of us. And I know we always hear it says it takes a community. It does. And it shows that you are here to support our children so they are all successful. And that is our goal today. And if you'd like this slide, it can be sent, or we can also go to the school district and see these numbers. So that's where we're at. We are going to come up with solutions today. And that's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.
All right, has anybody seen that data before? Has anybody seen it? Yay, nay? This is public data. This isn't new.
Right.
Right? This isn't new. So let's not all be collectively shocked.
Right.
Right? So let's all take a deep breath and now think, how do we build on top of this? As I said before, we're talking about African American children. None of this data is knocking it out the park to me. Right? So we can do better. Collectively as a community, we can do better. But this isn't what this is about. This is not, there's a lot of resources in this community. Let's remember that. There's a lot of smart people in this community that can make this better. Right. So this should not bring us down. This should motivate us to want to rise up. Remember that. That's very, very key. So we're going to hear from the Cedar Rapids School District. We have Akwi as well, and also Noreen, who is with us today, to sort of talk about some of those efforts and ways you can also get involved.
Thank you for the opportunity today, and thank you for venturing out for the continued discussion. Hopefully today is just a continued launch, and we have a lot of really good things going on in our community as well as within our district. Our vision is every learner, and every means every learner future ready. And in order to be future ready, we have to know what our kids are currently experiencing, but also what the forecast is for them in the future. The data that President Humboldt shared, if kids are performing or 50% of our kids are not performing at proficiency, we know that already puts them behind the starting gate of being future ready. So we have lots of things underway within the district, but I love the pronouncement of we can't do it alone. And we already have evidence that we aren't doing this alone, and we have great opportunities within our system already where we partner to create pathways for kids. So we know that a child's narrative and what they believe about themselves is probably one of the #1 barriers for their own success within our system and even within our community. And so I'm a great fan of a National Geographic photographer, and one of the things that he always says, James DeWitt Jones, is instead of thinking that you have to see it in order to believe it, you actually have to believe it first in order to see it. And helping our children believe that into the possibilities and their narrative for themselves is the number one thing that we can do for them in order to see success. We are seeing improvement in our achievement data, but that is due to adults believing too. And when adults wrap their arms around children and walk that step by step by step success path with them, kids can find those success paths. So these are some ways in which we are seeing that partnership. The power of invitation is unbelievably leveraging for kids. So when we create opportunities, and I'm just going to use the ACT as an example. The ACT, which is a college assessment test, lives within the opportunity in our community and our schools. And kids have been invited to the opportunity through email, through invitations in the mail, through their counseling office. However, if kids already believe, I'm not going to college, they don't go to the opportunity on a Saturday to take that test in our community. We believe so much in our children that we have said every child in Cedar Rapids Community School District is going to get that opportunity in our four walls during a school day. We are very proud of that opportunity this year. Unfortunately, got canceled due to snow this week. But we've rescheduled that opportunity, and that is one way, instead of creating opportunities that are hidden or masked within their narrative, of opening up the system with adult support. So some of the examples you see on the screen here are partnerships we have not just within the school district, but within the community. So AAAP, that is our African American Academic Achievement Program, where adults are mentoring kids in how to be scholastically successful, but personally successful. The Academy, helping kids understand what it means to reach into rigorous programs, especially through our AP programs, which is time and time again shows when kids are exposed to rigorous curriculum with support, they'll be successful. We also have Rites of Passage and Girls Anger Management Group, Iowa Big, with the NAACP, Unsnappin', which is a program specifically for men to have adult men mentors for them to recreate that narrative for themselves. We have, within our school system, we also have academic supports where our teachers are in small groups reteaching kids and giving them opportunities to reassess based on the data that we know. And so we know the things that we can do within the school, but we have them 8 hours a day, and there are 24 hours within the day. And recently they've been home a lot more than anticipated, and making sure that we have extensions beyond our school day. Access to programs like this, but also access within instruction and curriculum is so crucial. We have also dedicated through a technology plan, which really we're calling a teaching and learning plan, a one-to-one computer option for our kids next year to have at the high school level, so that they have access anytime, anywhere learning. And in order to make it equitable, we have received a grant where we hope to make that Wi-Fi access anywhere within our community or their homes, so that they can get the supports that they need, additional instruction and access to curriculum. So these are some of the efforts. Together we want to partner, continue to partner that collaboration, wrap our arms around our kids together to make sure that every learner is future ready. And I know it's my thing is to make folks say this with me, but I say every learner, you say future ready. Every learner? Future ready. We can do it together. So thank you for your commitment to children. They really are our future, but they deserve every single opportunity, but it will take all of us to help them get there.
Thank you. Excuse me. Okay.
So how many of you think back to your childhood and remember at least one adult in your childhood who impacted you in such a way that you believe you are a different person, a better person for having them in your life? Okay. I believe that that's probably true of most everyone who walks this earth, right? There's something to be said for personal connection and intentional engagement with another human being. And one of the things that we offer in the Cedar Rapids School District is an opportunity for volunteerism. volunteerism as partnership. When I think about my own childhood, I think about two people primarily outside of my family who impacted me socially, who impacted me academically. One of those people was Ruth White. And certainly you are doing the same with other people in your circles right now, especially young people. I think that to a certain degree our community doesn't realize how many opportunities are available to volunteer in our schools. Make that personal connection, build that engagement, build that capacity within students to believe what Noreen was describing about themselves, right? The capacity to be successful. And so when I think about that personal experience that we can all imagine having had as children, I think about how the depersonalized and rule-governed relationships that sometimes monopolize our time must make way for these personal connections and the one-on-one engagement. So when I think about how that happens, you think about role models. You think about mentorship. Mentorship in the context of formal and informal relationships, as well as volunteerism. We know that children who grow up with a mentor in their life, whether it's a formal or informal relationship, are 55% more likely to enroll in college, 78% more likely to volunteer regularly, 90% are interested in becoming a mentor, and 130% of them are more likely to hold leadership positions. That is just by having a mentor, informally or formally, in your life. When I think about the opportunities in our schools, in our 31 schools, for our volunteers to participate one-on-one with our kids, I think about what that means for those kids to be exposed to different perspectives, different professions, different backgrounds, so that when we're volunteering in our schools, it's not just to be engaged with our child or with our child in the context of that education, but it's an opportunity to be engaged with all of those children in that classroom. And it seems like something fairly small, right? To go into a classroom and read to kids, to go into a classroom, maybe help the teacher with handing out badges. But when we think about the return on investment, leveraging those opportunities and maximizing those opportunities so that you're not only reading to a kid, but you're also developing a relationship with that kid, so that perhaps you're one of those volunteers who shows up to an elementary school classroom once a week for 20 minutes a week. That consistency over time changes children. And so you have in front of you, some of you grabbed a packet about the volunteer opportunities available in the school district. And if you each don't have a packet, hopefully at your table, at least one person has a packet. And the very first page of that packet gives you an indication of just how many hours and how many thousands of volunteers are already spending time in our schools with our students. The pages after that first one are just a number of ways that you might consider being involved. And there are two different pages, one for elementary schools, one for middle and high schools. Many of you, if you have children in the school district, you're likely already spending time in some way, shape, or form on one of our sites. Thinking about how you can leverage that time that you're already spending is something I would invite you to do. Thinking also about leveraging your privilege is something that I would invite all of us to do. We are all privileged in a certain way. Socioeconomic status may be one. Access to transportation may be another. Perhaps you are in a situation where professionally your job provides you with the opportunity with a flexible schedule so that you can spend 1 day a week, 1 hour of that day a week working with kids. That is a privilege that you can certainly engage. There's another document there that talks about the various ways you might start thinking about volunteering in our schools. You could, if you have children in the schools, contact the school directly. They have programming in place already, formalized programming in place already, where if you say, hey, what do you have available that I can just come in and read to kids? They've already got it in place. All you have to do is sign up. That's just one example, right? So call your child's school directly. Contact the Community Relations Office. We house a lot of the information regarding the volunteer program that's available in the school district. And then also leverage the community partners. So we've got, and these are just a few, United Way, Boys and Girls Club, HAYCAP, and so on. Again, they have formalized programming within our schools that are volunteer opportunities to engage one-on-one with students. All of this work, to a certain degree, is already underway, and we can certainly use more support in that regard. Especially thinking about the fact that many of our students are coming from a diverse background experience. And when I think about one piece of data that I just happen to know, 43% of the boys and girls, of the children served by the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, for instance, 43% are ethnic minorities. 12% of the volunteers supporting those kids are ethnic minorities. So there's a disparity there as just one example of how we could be better engaged as minorities in supporting our kids in this way as well.
All right, so how many of you thinking, I don't want to go back to school? How many people thought that for real? I know I did. I was like, I didn't want to step foot in school again after I was out of it. But think about this. You give an hour a week, you got 2 hours in a week. How many people just watching TV? How many people do binge watching Netflix? Come on, I'm not the only one. Think about it. You just give up one Netflix show for a week, right? 1 hour, give up one show for each week. Think about what you can do for a child, right? It's that simple. It's that simple. So there are so many ways to get involved, so many ways. And the school district is welcoming. The community organizations are welcoming. So we're going to come back to that today a little bit because we want you to get engaged. We want you to give of your time. You have so much you can give children. We just have to have you tap into that and know that you can. Sometimes we just don't even believe that, but you do. You have that gift. So we're going to start with the roundtables because enough of us talking. I know you're sick of my voice. And we're going to have everybody on your tables in your groups. We're going to ask 3 key questions, and we want to hear from you. That's what this is really about. There are table facilitators that will help so to keep that conversation going. And the first question, what barriers or obstacles exist to parents and community parent and community engagement in our schools? What is it that keeps the community from being engaged? What is it that keeps parents from being engaged in part of the solution? Right? We cannot sit back and say that is somebody else's fault. They have screwed up some system. What keeps us from actually engaging to feel like we can make a difference in that system? That's what we also need to know. What are those obstacles that are keeping people from actually giving of their time and knowing that they can be part of the solution?
Little housekeeping? So real quick, little housekeeping. So this is going to be very interactive. We need your voices. So what we're going to do is you have stickies at your table. Everybody likes color and talk. So you're going to discuss question 1 amongst yourselves. You're going to talk about ideas that you have. What are the problems? And we know that you want to, it's okay if we argue a little bit or you moan about what you know in the system, but we want to manage time. We're already a little bit behind, so I'm going to try not to talk too much. But so you're going to come up, and the facilitators will help you come up with your ideas, and then you're going to talk and come up, what are the top 3 barriers at your table? And then we're going to take the top 3 of all you guys' stickies, and the facilitators are going to come and put them up here on question 1. Then we're going to come back through and we're going to do question 2, and we'll talk to you about that in a minute.
Could you identify the facilitators too?
Yeah,
Please.
anybody that's walked, I'm one, Reggie Ward is another. Can you guys name? Chris? Stand up, Carl. Would you like to help? Would you like, you're facilitating at that table. Huh? We got it? So we have enough?
Okay.
We need a man to come. Yeah. So everybody kind of knows if you can get, we will start.
Eric, did you raise
now. We'll be around to help you. What are the barriers that you know of?
Hello. All right, we're going to have our facilitators run through. I was not a teacher, so I know how to get right attention. We're going to have our facilitators step up and read their top 3 and then they go on the board. So remember what you hear.
All right. My 3, parents don't know resources that are available. Lack of technology or access to technology. I guess you don't do homework, it's everything in technology. Transportation and life commitments.
All right, let's put that on number 1 over there.
Put that on the board.
Come on in.
So time and energy, trying to balance other needs and responsibilities. I'm sure there's a lot of folks who feel that way. Parents do not feel like the opinion matters, or they are not being listened to when there is a problem with the child or even their own child, Financial barriers, daycare issues, awareness of opportunities, feeling of belonging, comfort in the environment, time, budget, time in schools when school's out. All right. Let me get that out of your way there.
One of theirs was foundation, just the foundation. A lot of people, their foundations are different. The other one is volunteering, like parenting, is something that takes practice. Time, especially for working parents, single parents. Not all parents have access to regular communication, such as email, or they don't feel like the communication is being sent out properly, or everyone's getting it.
We had working in general. We also had the fact that for people to be aware of opportunities, one of the things we need to improve is our district website, because it's very difficult for many people to navigate. And the fact that if there are volunteer opportunities out there, we don't know what they are, and if we do, we need to be able to go to an orientation to learn more about it. So.
And our group had the perception that teachers are too busy, or curriculum is too full to host volunteers.
A little bit louder, Carl.
Okay. Perception that teachers are too busy or curriculum is too full to host volunteers. Schedules, the schedules of the parents, the schedule of the school day, along with the schedule of all the activities, balancing the activities. Negative experience from their personal past with their child is usually turned to the parent, and then the one that is really common is transportation.
The overt generational fear and intimidation of generational poverty and lack of engagement, the lack of substantive transportation, and the unfortunate scheduling of PTA meetings.
Good afternoon, all. Touching on some of the themes, most of the themes that have been described already, but our top three, just first of all, not being aware of the opportunities on where to engage and how to engage. Second, not feeling welcomed, from their own historical or personal experience, or because of some things that may have happened within the school district itself. Last, just a general lack of trust, of not just school system, and I'm not talking about necessarily the Cedar Rapids school system, but the school system and entities in general, based on historic experience. They are true barriers. Thank you.
Communication was a primary theme at our table. Communication in the context of frequency as well as platform. And then time was another major theme in the context of parents' work being a limitation to how frequently they may be able to engage with their students academically and with the schools themselves. And then related to that to a certain degree, the financial limitations and the depths of that sort of were around transportation as well.
Awesome, I got a couple tables here. So we got distrust in schools. It seemed like that was a general theme that I've heard a few times. Work schedules, and then transportation. Implicit bias, not creating a good school climate. Another, work schedules, and then another one is parents and families not empowered in general, including the schools finding a fit, the perfect fit for families to volunteer.
I guess I'm last again. Again, poor communication between schools and families. Have a negative interaction or relationship with the schools. And schedules, again, time when people have to work, multiple jobs, single parents.
All right. Everybody remember some of those? Carl's like, no. Is that a daunting list? Yeah? Have anybody noticed it's so easy to come up with a list of problems? Has anybody noticed that? You sit around, you come up with a lot of stuff that's wrong. Guess what we get to do now? What are the solution to those problems?
Right.
Same principle. Put as much energy into solution focus as you did the problems. All right.
I just want to reiterate, this is this part of the process, questions 2 and 3 are important. And he makes the point, I'm just going to pound it again. We can't keep complaining if we're not going to come up with ideas, and then we'll talk about question 3 after that. So please take this seriously. Please come up with some ideas. If your idea was that transportation was a problem, if you had a crystal ball, what would you do about it? Don't worry about money, time, and energy. That'll cross the bridge later. But what would you do about it if you could do something? Sorry.
Thank you. All right. All right. So we're talking about solutions now. So we're going to start off with some solutions.
All right.
There you go.
We ended up with 4 solutions. I'm telling you, give all y'all a hand if you all are thinking here today. Yeah? All right. First one is add working at an after-school program to the curriculum for college students majoring in education. So go down to the colleges and recruit some of those young minds to come up and use that as a curriculum for them to get credits. Make transportation and childcare available for PTAs and other meetings. Hospitality team, revamp current greeter system, and recruit more teachers and educators of color.
Our table came up with a rotating, if not floating, PTA and school event meeting schedule, and not being held at one facility at one specific time. In specific communities where large numbers of students and families have a rotating carpool to these meetings and events, where everyone who is in the car will chip in for gas at some point. And third, and possibly most important, keeping the administration or the principals who have invested in their communities and listen to not only their faculty and staff, but their parents, keeping them in that position and allow them to affect additional yearly change.
Well, our other two were pretty similar, but we had a pretty radical idea. Year-round school. Yeah, please. Thank you. Yes. We can start a movement. Yeah, we can start a movement. But so we can continue. Thank you, Mrs. Humbles. Provide child care for evening activities along with food. And we also said transportation. Doesn't have to be on the books. You don't have to ask the district. Just pick up kids in your neighborhood and bring them to those activities as well.
All right. One of our solutions in terms of just access to getting in our schools. One of the folks at the table brought up the possibility of engaging with employers in the community specifically who have allocated PTO time for volunteerism, and then formalizing some sort of process with some of those employers.
That's excellent.
Isn't that lovely? I thought so too. And then, my goodness, so many solutions around communication. Imagine that. But one of those was specifically around texting. First of all, just one notch out, trying to wrap our heads around what would be best in terms of a process and strategies that truly use the most appropriate platforms and the most appropriate timing and cadence with those communications in a way that's most effective for all of our families, and then knowing that with our 31 buildings, perhaps what works in one may not work in another. So just trying to be strategic around communication in general, and then also folding into current practice texting as an option, perhaps becoming the primary mode of communication for some of our activities. And then the third was also around PTAs. We've heard a lot about PTA meetings, live streaming those so that you eliminate that barrier in terms of space and time theoretically.
Which would link back to what Noreen said earlier about Wi-Fi access in the next year, because you can't stream if you don't have access. All right. Having said that, moving on, one of our concerns at our table was how do we get this message out of this room, out into the community? And one of the ways we might be able to do that is everybody in here needs to inform somebody else and bring them to the next meeting. Bring a buddy. You know, it's worked very well in the last year for the Flip It groups that we've had that helped raise money to flip the legislature. It didn't completely work, but it's an idea. You bring a buddy. One of the concerns was also to make sure that Aqui knows what the issues are. I think after today, if she didn't know what they were, she will. Yes. Because I love you, Aqui, but not everybody knows who you are in this room and what you do. So we've been sharing that. Yes, right. And then, yes, as well as the idea of developing a community group, a speaker cadre, if you will, that comes out of this group, or volunteers volunteering to go out and reach out in the community to the community groups that are out there and let them know about what the opportunities to volunteer in and around the schools. So, for example, one of the great things that happened in the last month during all this weather is we got a group together to do backpacks and food, because we have so many kids in poverty that don't get any food unless they come to school. So, and last but not least, number 4, an orientation for volunteers. All right? Maybe at the beginning of the year. It's hard to know because we have so many volunteer coordinators in different schools. Some schools have them, some schools maybe don't, because it's hard to find somebody. So that's another possibility. Thank you.
Sure, I get the short call. Okay, in brevity, first of all, using data that we present to the community, and more importantly, data that we present to the parents of the students who are part of the groups that we're concerned about. You know, easier said than done, but bringing students or bringing parents in when students are young, when they're in kindergarten and first grade, and talk about the challenges, you know, that we have and work on solutions to change the game. We need to ask the parents what they need to get them engaged in the conversation. Well, what are we put our heads together, come up with what we think are barriers and build solutions. What do the parents say are the barriers? And then the last thing is that we do need to recognize that this is complex. And what I mean by that, and as we discussed at our table, is that there is no single solution. You can't draw a circle around, say, African American students and then build a program that's going to impact their lives and change the game. It doesn't work that way. We need to be smarter than that. Yeah, drill down into the 3, 4, 5 different and separate challenges, and build solutions, build groups to build solutions to address those challenges. That's it.
Okay, I have a couple of groups. One of them is support politicians who support education. Yep. Change the old model of one-time meetings at noon. Offer several options, because there's a lot of parents that work and they can't come. Partnerships with congregations, retirement centers, neighborhood associations. They could help with reading, transportation, and hopefully self-esteem. And these are just solutions for transportation. Carpooling by neighborhood. And then there was another latecomer, and one of their barriers was teachers of color. It makes a difference. History has proven facts. And one of the solutions is to recruit more teachers of color. International individual solutions through positive contacts. Partnerships with cities or businesses to get creative transportation for families. Example, car dealerships. Building volunteer coordinators, take some of the load off of the teachers and the other staff. Employers paying their people who volunteer.
Table with that.
Now to follow that up. Thanks. The first one we addressed was the feeling of belonging, and so we kind of looked at it as feeling comes from opportunities and ultimately communication. And then we basically listed all the different ways you can reach from the school out into the community, whether it be digitally, using your phone, physically in person, and making sure that we use all of those options, including having PTA meetings both during the day and after school. The second one we looked at was looking at awareness, and again, trying to use every platform we can, including social media, and trying to make some connections with media in town and trying to get them to publicize things so we can get community outreach. And then the last one talked again about transportation and using carpooling as well as shuttle drivers for some of the schools.
Perfect, thanks. So a couple tables here. School volunteer coordinator, someone that can we can work on the being able to train, to recruit, retain, and try to get over some of the poor experiences. Transportation on 2 tables, so carpools, free Ubers, stipends, city bus, transportation, so trying to work through that. A volunteering database, so a database that can kind of track people's skills, what they can do when they're available, those kind of things. And then also implicit bias training, cultural competency training, regular and ongoing.
I have no more to add. Well, seriously, so patience and empathy was one that was probably a little different, but the other ones were PTA conferences, accessibility, and diversity training. So I really don't have any more to add.
All right. How much fun was that to come up with solutions? Yeah, didn't that feel good in there? Good. Some good quality solutions in there. So this is the challenge. Let's go to question number 3, and that's where we're going to get you out on here on time, if it kills me, right? Is what are you committed to doing? Right? This is about us. This is about what are we committed to doing. So at a table, talk about your personal commitment to helping change these outcomes for children. So spend a little time with that. That might be a little harder. It's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Right, wait. You want me to volunteer? I'll get my cousin to do it. No. What are you willing to do? What is your personal commitment?
So I think that's important, guys. We're not here to bash anybody. We're not here to put you on the spot, kind of, sort of, a little bit. But really, if you could give 15 minutes a week to something, whatever it is, if we're in the room, you came here, so we can run our mouths all day long, but what are we willing to do when you're looking in the mirror at yourself? What are you going to do? That's what we're asking. Come up with some ideas.
I couldn't hardly hear you back there.
So our facilitators are going to run through some of your commitments, and they're going to be brief and believe in brevity on this one, right? That's what we were told, be brief. All right, Anthony.
Okay, we had a table that is going to make commitments to lobbying for more funding for education as well as educational reform. They're going to commit to pulling together individuals who no longer have children in the system to help them understand the importance of them staying engaged. We've got commitments to talk with students about the opportunities that exist in CR for them and the excitement of living in CR. So these are some commitments that we have.
Several people committed to volunteering in the schools, and another large group of folks decided to bring a friend to events like this in the future.
Very good. I got a lot of them. One table said they're going to building our own educators from within our system, continue to build cultural competence and intercultural mindsets, positive communication from school to home, family engagement strategies. And then another group, they said they didn't want to be limited to 3 because these are their own personal commitments. Reshape the parish budget to help support schools and needs. Keep meeting instead of this being a one-shot deal. Just do it.
Yeah.
being a liaison to the community as to the school's needs, to buck the status quo, volunteer at Washington High School, push out volunteer requests on social media, attend Wellington Heights Neighborhood Association. Yes.
Second Tuesday of every month, 7 o'clock. Paul Ingle.
You want to say it again?
Second Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock at the Paul Ingle Center is the Wellington Heights Neighborhood Association.
So please don't act like you didn't know.
Yeah.
Recommitment to work harder with kids, if nothing else but to feel better about ourselves.
On the Wellington Heights thing, I've been on the board a long time, and I intend to stay on the board because we need to know what's going on. All right, I'm willing to pass along relevant information regarding school resources and events, reach out to parents of students at my child's school, come to solutions through prayer of how we can start helping students in behavioral and non-behavioral classes, and I would help with creating a hospitality team, or a team that helps parents be advocates. That's our three. Okay? We have good tape.
So I have a few from another group. Connect with medium-sized businesses to see what kind of support they can offer financially, assisting with transportation, local nurse providing health screening at the school. Our group build relationships with students beyond teaching and raise expectations. Teaching things like chess, cooking, and reading. Time and dollars spent, time and dollars they're willing to give and do. And then assisting students with behaviors and life lessons.
Wonderfully, each member at the table that I was facilitating has a unique investment already. Mr. Humbles is the lead facilitator for the Unsnappin' program. Ms. Kelly McMahon, organizing implicit bias and microaggression training with and through and by the Cedar Rapids Education Association. Joss Dolson, Kids on Course. We provide busing for kids for our after-school programs, so parents don't have to worry about transportation, and communicate with parents through the Remind app, which is on a phone. It's a cellular device, and you can download it for free in an app store, for those of you who don't know what a smartphone is. Dr. White, on her post-it, wrote, "Listen to me," but she is the founder and executive director and one of our pillars in Cedar Rapids. Not only knowing the history of Black Americans, but also the history of Cedar Rapidians, and her mind is worth tapping if you haven't already. My father's job and commitment to the community is being himself. In case you don't know who it is, Slayton Thompson is in Cedar Rapids again. And I asked, as Tanya Snyderman began a description of what she would like to do, and rather than have her write it out on the post-it, and this may take maybe 2 minutes, I asked her to trust me with being able to detail what she wants to do. And I find this to be extremely important, and it's something that I've found in my experience many people don't want to say publicly, so not being an elected official, I will do that. She said, I would like to engage more minorities in communication, which I believe is twofold. I believe our community, and our is Cedar Rapids, but more explicitly it is the Black community and the brown community and the biracial community in Cedar Rapids, has to be willing to engage and listen and not become offended when somebody who doesn't look like them asks a question, why or how can I help?
Share three quick points here. First of all, we agreed at the table that we know people that should be here today that are not, and we're going to make sure by holding hands we're going to bring them next time. This is important. Second, a couple at our table said that they're going to volunteer at schools. They're going to find ways to volunteer in our schools, even though they don't have kids in the schools anymore, which is the driver of many of our volunteerism in the schools today. Third, and this one is probably the most personal to me, is that I personally need to get engaged in the schools. You know, I have a voice. I'm an engineer by degree, and by most of my career, there is STEM education, explaining the value of STEM careers and what that actually means. You don't necessarily have to be a 4-year degree engineer to be in the STEM environment. You know, there are tech schools, there are avenues that you all know about that are there. We need people to know about these early on. Parents, guardians of students, and the students themselves. We need them to know what the opportunities are. That's one thing that I can do and help do personally, more than many others, and one of the few values that I have, and I need to use
it. All right, piggybacking off of that, several people at our table also chimed in with an interest in volunteering in Cedar Rapids School District, with a focus on their skill sets and their areas of expertise. And then we also had a member of our team say that she wanted to reach out specifically to more families of color to ask them exactly what would be helpful to them and what they may need, and then bridge the gap in that way. And then share the opportunities available to volunteer in the Cedar Rapids School District with others in the spirit of the It Takes a Village approach. And that was 3, so I'll stop there.
We said go public, which would mean social media, letters to the editor, reaching out to the Board of Supervisors, because there are a lot of elected officials that came in today, but they're not here. Personal commitments, I would certainly be willing, you know, if the speaker cadre idea got off the ground, I'd be willing to go out and talk to groups. And then bring somebody to this meeting the next time. We all said that we would try to do that, because that helps to build the community.
All right, well, that's pretty powerful stuff. One of the things that also was mentioned is bring a parent to this meeting next time. How about that as well? There are a few people before we just sort of recap. So we're going to take all of this and convert it to a document, and that document will get shared in the community, and we're figuring out how to do that, as there's a community of folks who are sort of working on this. I want to encourage people to come to the next meeting and bring a parent, bring a friend, bring somebody, which is March 24th, right? Am I at the right date? Okay. Right. All right, thank you. From 1:30 to 3:30 again, same sort of format. So we hope to see you back here then as well. There's a few people we do need to thank that I did not do at the beginning. First of all, the Cedar Rapids Education Association, the NAACP, and the African American Museum for their sponsorship of this event today. Can we give them a round of applause? There's also 2 resource tables in the back, so please grab some of the resources from some of the area organizations, and also the Civil Rights Commission, who's also been a great partner in a lot of events this last month especially, so we can give them a round of applause as well. And so you came down on a very snowy, brisk, icy, uncomfortable day. So was it a good way to spend a couple hours together? So when you think about it, I said this when I wrote that article in the paper, when you think about all the stuff people say, how we're against each other all the time, look around this room and think about how these people, all these different backgrounds, different forms of life, different paths, came together to talk about something that is so fundamental to making our community better. So remember that. There is more we have in common than apart. We can be part of the solution together. Don't forget that. You guys, go enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.